Welcome, everybody, to VoteProPot-Cast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britt.
And I'm Andrew McCready's.
Utah is in the news once again, and cannabis growers are not happy. Jay will tell us more about that. An anti-pot senator from Kentucky suddenly gains a new appreciation for cannabis. There is a new synthetic CBD. Andrew's going to talk to us about what to do with your used vape cartridges. Google Play Store is no longer allowing marijuana delivery apps, so those are going away. A man has a rather tragic, sad, but kind of comical mishap with a gun while hiding his weed, and Andrew will fill us in on that. But first, Andrew, you've got a story on how cannabis affects sleep and dreaming.
People who use cannabis regularly sometimes don't dream as much or don't remember their dreams as much. Now, they've done some studies, and it turns out that there's some truth to that. That they say people who smoke often, I mean, we're talking about chronic users probably more than someone who uses it. Obviously, use it casually, it probably won't have that effect. But they're finding what they're finding happens is it affects, like when you sleep, you go through like 5 stages. Now, the first 3 stages are basically getting you're gradually getting fall deeper and deeper asleep until you reach the 4th stage, which is the deep sleep stage, which where all the restorative things happen to you mentally and physically. It's where you get get revitalized. And then you go into REM sleep, and that's where you have obviously rapid eye movement, and that's where you dream. That's where most dreams, but not all dreams, most dreams occur. And so they find when people who smoke a lot of cannabis tend to have a shorter REM cycle and a longer 4th stage cycle. And now the down points to that is when people don't dream, and the other thing about the 4th cycle, if you're awakened during that 4th cycle, that's when you get. If you've ever been awoken from a really deep sleep and you're really groggy at first, and it takes you a while to wake up, that's because you're awoken during that 4th stage. I mean, there's other stages where you wake up and you're like, I can spring out of bed, but sometimes, you still might feel refreshed after a few minutes, but it's hard to do. And the downfall of having a shorter REM cycle is, well, some people theorize that maybe dreaming about things can help you deal with trauma or other things as far as your life is concerned, help you deal with issues.
That makes sense.
Which kind of makes sense. Now, I was sort of thinking that I know with me, I dream. I mean, I smoke regularly, and I remember dreams every now and then. It depends on when I wake up or how I wake up sometimes, But it seems like if I wake up in the middle of the dream, I remember it, But also sometimes I sort of, when I first fall asleep, I can start dreaming, having a visual of a dream, but whatever I'm listening, like if I'm watching TV, the audio is still going through. It's sort of weird. I don't know if anyone else that happens to. But I was thinking how, the few things about this. One, that I think sort of cannabis sort of makes you sort of dream while you're awake.
True. Kinda.
Yeah.
You drift. Yeah.
Yeah. I was writing notes about this, and I wrote that down first as a joke, and then I said, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something to that. Maybe some people say it increases my creativity. I think of things more. I mean, so is that, are you dreaming up things more? I mean, I don't know. It's fascinating stuff I think they should study. And there is a benefit that I think people who suffer from nightmares or night terrors, maybe, I don't. So I don't know if it works enough, but maybe this could help.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think if I suffered from those, I certainly would try it.
Well, they're using it with veterans with PTSD, so there is some correlation there, I guess.
So what you're saying is reality is for people who can't handle drugs?
Yeah, exactly, Phil. Right. No, but what I'm saying, but the article really concludes saying that really if for 2 things. One, if you start feeling this way, you're not dreaming. If you just stop smoking for like a week or so, just dry out, you'll immediately start dreaming. And actually, something will occur. It's something like it's like REM recuperating cycle or something. If you stop smoking, you'll all of a sudden dream a lot.
You'll
get a lot of crazy dreams, and then you'll sort of back down to a regular dream cycle.
But you have to quit smoking for a while.
Right.
That's a risk I'm not willing to take.
And the other thing they say that there really is no harm in it. Not that there's no documented harm. There's no story saying how the lack of not dreaming is often, has had an adverse effect.
Does it have anything to do with the quality of your sleep? You know what I mean? Like not dreaming and not having that deep.
Well, I mean, it seems to me if you're in that deep sleep stage for longer, that's like Andrew says, the more restorative part of sleep. That probably is helpful. I would think,
you
right?
would be more rested. Probably, then.
Yeah. I mean, you still wake up rested. So I mean, that's the big thing. But just fascinating,
and especially if you're recovering from an injury or an illness or something like that. Sleep is, one of the best things you can do, and the more you can have that restorative sleep, it certainly doesn't hurt.
Hell yeah.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, obviously, indicas. If you have a nice indica, will definitely help you fall asleep, and get a good night's sleep. And people, I don't know how many times doctors have told me. I mean, the best what you need to do is just get some rest and eat well. And
yeah,
right. What are the two side effects of cannabis?
Yeah,
you get tired and hungry. I mean,
okay.
Well, people should let us know in our comments or maybe on our Facebook page or something if you guys dream, regular smokers, because that's when I stop and think about it, I really don't dream. I mean, I don't remember my dreams anymore.
Yeah, tell us what you think about that. Do you dream more? Do you dream less? Tell us about your experience with cannabis and dreaming, or any other topic you want to converse with us or convey to us. Check us out at VoteProPot.com.
Or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com, or call our message line at 240-257-2441.
Personally, middle age crushed all my dreams. But please like and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
So I'll tell you who else is not happy. Marijuana growers in Utah. What can you tell us about that, Jay?
Well, I'm looking at an AP report dated yesterday. Utah proposes medical marijuana growers fee upwards of $100,000. The reason I picked this story is, Andrew especially has pushed the whole small business, and of course, it's a big controversy in the whole marijuana field right now in the business, is the little guy against the big guy. And Utah is according to the Salt Lake Tribune, the state plans to charge $10,000 application fee plus another $100,000 annual licensing fee for those that are chosen. Now, they're only giving out 10 approved medical marijuana growers permits in the whole state. 10. So, I guess the question then is, I have 2 points to make. One, I have the question, why would they limit it to 10 at $100,000 instead of maybe 100, or 1,000, and charge less per grower and let some little guys get in there,
Well, they can't control it. They're afraid they'll lose control of that many growers. In Maryland,
I suppose.
In Maryland, it's $175,000 a year for a grow permit.
Annual.
And they gave out 15 originally, and I think they're going to be giving out 5 more.
Is that right?
Now, the reason that it's crazy in Utah is that the medical marijuana laws are so severe and strict that, the sales are going to be minuscule, a very limited product line. So it's going to be hard to make your money back.
And that brings me to my next point, Andrew, and that is, you see this often in states where cannabis became legal, especially in medical, by means of a ballot initiative. So what happens very often is a more conservative state, typically, the legislature would never pass it, but it goes to a ballot initiative. They get the signatures and it passes, but they don't set up the law by means of the ballot initiative or the proposal or whatever they call it. It's all the same thing. It's voted on by the voters. But what happens in these conservative states, then it's handed over to the legislators to create the laws. And because they tend to be against cannabis anyway, they often set up A, like this for their big money friends, and B, they set it up to make it unattractive and not to really meet the needs of what the voters had in mind. Don't you think that's the case?
Absolutely. You can tell, like in Maryland, when they decided to go medical, it took them a while, but they did it right, and they got a nice medical program that works well, established and thriving and growing. But other states, like for Utah example, and other states where they said, oh, we passed a marijuana law, but there's none available. There's no dispensaries opened up, and if they are, it's so limited. You can only use oil, right? And you have to have 1 foot in the grave, or
you see this in the conservative states.
2 doctors to sign off on it,
right? It's Arizona, Utah, what else? Alaska, Nevada. All of these states have legal medical marijuana, or in some cases is recreational, because of ballot initiatives. Out of the 33 states that have legal marijuana now, medical, 17 of those passed by means of a ballot.
Well, that's how Colorado got it.
Yeah, well, California. I mean, all of them, essentially, or half of them. Certainly all the early states, Oregon, Washington, California, they all had ballot initiatives. That's the reason it became legal.
Well, Vermont is the only state that actually legalized just through legislation.
For recreational?
Yeah.
Wow.
For adult use. They're the only state that did it.
Well, for medical, it's 33 states, right? And 16 of them were through the legislators, and 17 of them were through ballot initiatives. So, anyway, I think it's a discussion worth having, and I think it's leading to a situation where cannabis is just going to be for the big business guys, certainly growing, and even dispensaries. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for a little guy or gal to get into that business.
Well, what happened in Oklahoma was, they proposed all this medical marijuana to the medical marijuana legislation to the state legislators, and they wouldn't go for it. And they even proposed some pretty strict regulations. Yeah. And they wouldn't go for it. So then they passed a ballot initiative, and now there's going to be friggin' billboards for medical marijuana, on every highway. I mean, they're going to get. They are going to get a system that they really, don't want, and where they could have had something that they were more in favor of, but because of their stubbornness, oh well.
That's right. Oh well.
Well, going from Utah to Kentucky, this is a story from flowcent.com, where the State House of Representatives will be considering a medical marijuana initiative, a vote. Right now, the Kentucky House of Representatives is Republican-controlled. In fact, state government is completely in control by the GOP. And that includes one representative, Jason Nemes, who is opposed to medical marijuana, as well as the majority floor leader, John Bam Carney, who controls which bills get to the floor for a House vote, said he would not vote for the bill. In fact, the bill is unlikely to get a vote or pass a vote in the 100-member State House of Representatives. However, there is one Kentucky state senator, Dan Milano Siem, who was once an anti-pot legislator, but has since flipped. Why? Because he was diagnosed with cancer 7 years ago, and he had his own medical marijuana experience. He said the doctors gave him a, quote, nice bottle of OxyContin, unquote, which, of course, is a legal opioid painkiller. And of course, opioids have spiked, and deaths by opioids have spiked in the state over recent years. He now supports cannabis. He said, I threw that nice little bottle of OxyContin in the garbage can and went home and smoked a joint. And guess what?
There you go.
No nausea. I was able to function. I was going through the chemo treatment. It was during the legislative session. I did not miss a day due to cancer treatment, due to nausea from cancer.
Right on, bro.
Now, he is one of a bipartisan group of lawmakers who this past Wednesday introduced a bill that would make medical marijuana legal in Kentucky. And this would be for medical purposes only. And this comes after, of course, we know Senator Mitch McConnell also, he's a U.S. senator from Kentucky, shepherded through a farm bill that effectively legalized hemp as an industrial crop. So,
watch out for Kentucky.
Medical marijuana is legal in 33 other states. It looks doubtful at this point that Kentucky is going to be the 34th. However, it has one proponent in Dan Seum, Kentucky Republican state senator. So here's to you, Dan. I hope your treatment is going better and you're in remission. And now that doesn't mean you have to stop smoking joints, but, if that's what it takes.
Well, Phil, you're always talking about, kind of one of your goals with this show is to persuade the right. I mean, what's a better way to persuade the right than have them use medical cannabis in a situation like that, right?
Well, I mean, we've done articles recently about that. Senators, who have, hit the big C, and the treatment involves medical marijuana and quite successfully.
Exactly.
So I guess that if you are opposed to cannabis legalization, you got to ask yourself a question, an honest question. If you were diagnosed with cancer or a life-threatening illness or something that's chronic and very painful, or someone you loved was faced with that, and cannabis is known to help those symptoms or that disease, would you allow yourself to use it or someone you love to use it? Would you give them your blessings? And if you would, then you can't vote against it anymore.
You can't.
That is absolutely on point, Andrew. That is exactly the question. Absolutely. And I don't care whether you're a liberal Democrat or a conservative Republican or anything in between. Medical is medical. And if you have a treatment, that combats the two things that are the worst problems with chemotherapy, nausea and lack of appetite.
Right.
Why wouldn't you use it? And why would you deny others that? I think that's a great question, Andrew. Well put.
And it's very low risk.
Right. And inadvertently, the Senator Seum kind of outed his 24-year-old grandchildren, one of them anyway, saying she, quote, partakes of marijuana CBD to treat her epilepsy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He said, wouldn't it be nice if my granddaughter was no longer a criminal?
God, no kidding. Wow.
That's great.
So it's time, you fellows on the right, my fellows on the right, get with the program.
Can I hear an amen, Brother Phil? Everyone has good days and bad days. There's a gentleman in Washington State who had a really bad day. I like to start off by saying recreational marijuana is legal in the state of Washington. Mm-hmm. So there's a gentleman by the name of Cameron Wilson, 27 years old. He, I guess there's no better way to say it, but he accidentally shot himself through his testicles into his thigh while putting balloons full of marijuana into his butt.
What?
I don't know. I guess,
on purpose?
Well, no. I mean, obviously he was like stashing cannabis and he had a loaded handgun in his front pocket and it went off.
Don't we all?
And it shish kebabbed the boys and went into his thigh.
God.
So apparently, what he did, he had his girlfriend first drive him to a friend's house to drop off the handgun, the gun.
He's got a girlfriend.
Because he had been...
Doesn't have a girlfriend anymore.
Not a happy one. Well, no, but he'd been convicted of 13 felonies, and him having a firearm that was a violation.
Real
so
weird.
they dropped it off. So they took him to the hospital, and while he was on the operating table, the doctor said a balloon full of marijuana slipped out of his anus.
I hate when that happens.
So apparently, so he, well, when a gunshot victim comes in, the hospital always calls the police. I mean, that's a standard operating procedure.
To, yeah.
So they call the police. So they go out and search his car, and they find some meth and the pair of bloody pants he was wearing when he shot himself. So the cops come and go, listen, we're not
testicle material anywhere.
Right? They go, we're not going to arrest you. I could understand that. What cop's going? I mean, I could not take you to jail and keep a straight face the whole time.
Oh my God.
So they said, we're going to issue a warrant for him. Now the accident happened on April 5th. Now on April 18th, he goes to turn himself in to the police. So the police, they book him and they're taking him to the Justice Center or wherever, and they did strip search. And another balloon of pot slipped out of his ass.
What a fucking idiot.
Here's like 2 weeks later.
Oh, my God. Darwin Award.
Now, let's reiterate.
Oh, man.
He's in the state of Washington.
It's legal.
Where recreational adult use is legal.
Right. I don't get it. So he ends up getting charged with possession of a firearm, unlawful possession of meth, possession of a controlled substance in a correctional facility, and also, then when he's in jail, he calls his girlfriend and tells her not to answer any questions and not cooperate. So they get him, and they were listening in on the phone conversation, so they get him for on 4 counts of tampering with witnesses.
So let me get this straight. He's still got a girlfriend after he blows his balls off?
He'd have been better off stuffing the gun up his ass.
At least he's still
I just got to feel sorry for the guy,
Oh, it's hard to feel sorry for.
This is the kind of story that gives marijuana users a bad name.
Yes, it does. But I'm afraid there's just no cure for stupid.
God, man, what a fucking buffoon, man.
That story just keeps getting funnier.
Well, also, he gets
every
shot him shot through his testicles, plural, and into his thigh. I mean, those boys were hanging low, obviously,
Yeah.
Well, if he got himself in the knee, I'd be really impressed.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, really. Well, if that would happen to me, it would have been an ankle wound.
I'd have shot my kneecap off.
Well, see, he's only 27 because when you get older, I know there comes a time in every man's life when he sits down to take his dump and the boys splash down like the Apollo command module.
That's right.
And we're all at that age. So, yeah.
So what we need booster toilet seats. To get them out of the splash zone.
So our balls aren't wet.
Or a little ball hoist.
Or a red Solo cup. You can scoop out some of the water, maybe.
So we have seen synthetic cannabis develop. Now there is a synthetic CBD. Tell us about that, if you would, please, Jay.
I'm looking at an article from newatlas.com by Rich Harity. This is interesting and maybe a little scary. I don't know. See what you guys think. A team of chemists at the University of California, Davis, have demonstrated that a new synthetic analog of CBD may be just as effective for medical uses as the naturally extracted counterpart. This synthetic CBD compound also promises to be easier, cheaper, and faster to produce. So what they've done in the lab is they've found a way to chemically create, and I'm not a scientist, so I might be using the wrong terms here, to create a compound called H2CBD, which they say is identical to CBD from a hemp plant. But there's zero trace of THC, and of course, I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies are all over this because what it does is it allows them to produce for very low cost the compound CBD essentially, although it's synthetic, and they don't have to grow plants, they don't have to process hemp, they don't have to. It takes away so much of the expense, and they can create huge quantities.
But they're only making that one compound, cannabidiol.
Exactly. That's the complaint a lot of people have.
But there's all the other cannabinoids that they're not making. And we all know that, or we believe that the entourage effect, the ensemble effect of all the combination of all these in different ratios is what gives the the most benefit.
Right. This new Epidiolex, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Epidiolex.
Andrew talked about how much that cost. It's $30-some thousand for a year's worth or whatever. Is that what you said, Andrew?
Yeah, $32,000 a year.
So the point is here they could create this for a minute fraction of the cost to harvest hemp plants and process the oil and then turn it into.
And just think, when they sell it for $32,000 a year, how much more money they'll be making.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
It's like a 5,000% markup.
So, I'm wondering how people feel about this. I mean, is it scary? I mean, everybody's in the GMOs and all that stuff. It's kind of similar in that it's not genetic engineering, but it is compound chemical engineering. So
I wonder, I'm not scientific about it, but I wonder if this whole GMO scare and this is a little overblown. And I wonder if there's really anything, if it's the same compound, if it's the same chemical makeup,
then what difference?
Then it's the same.
Okay, fair enough.
Now the problem is that they're never quite exactly the same, so that has to be tested. So
this is one of the unique aspects of this compound, which they call H2CBD. Noted by researchers, is the fact that it cannot be converted into THC. The researchers tested the compound's efficacy in treating seizures against conventional CBD. In a series of experiments inducing seizures in rats, the study found that the H2 CBD was just as effective as CBD in rendering the number and severity of the seizures. So further tests have to be, and of course, human trials. But, I don't know what that says about the future of cannabis. Are they going to do the same thing with THC and the other compounds? I would say so.
Maybe.
And then the other question I have, and it's not in any of the articles I looked at, can they patent this? I would assume they can, or at least the process to come up with
the process. Yeah, they could probably patent the process. Now, it seems to me if it's just for epilepsy, CBD alone seems to treat it pretty well.
Exactly.
Isn't that what you've heard, Andrew? Is that correct?
They did a study in Brazil where they treated people with epileptic seizure disorders, I think different types of, not just epilepsy. And they found that the CBD product, they got like a positive response by about 55%. But then they gave the full plant with THC, and they got a positive result from over 70%.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so what they say about the entourage effect, and I remember hearing Dr. Behrman more than once talk about the entourage effect.
Absolutely.
And the importance of it. I think you're absolutely right, Andrew. It's great that you can isolate CBD and there's applications for it, but I don't think it's a substitute for whole plant, all the cannabinoids and terpenes that come with it.
They might find some application where it does work.
Right. I'm sure they would.
Right. But imagine if they could do this process eventually down the road with all of the important compounds, and then pharmaceutical companies could create exactly the ratios for different diseases or different treatments. I mean,
that would be ideal.
The possibilities are the possibilities are endless.
I do have one comment. They said there's no way to turn this CBD into THC. Now that doesn't happen naturally. The opposite happens. THC will eventually break down and become a CBD.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So, like that pot, so
THC is a more complex molecule?
Right, and it breaks down. And same with terpenes. A lot of people don't understand with terpenes, as soon as you cure it, then you pick the plant, the terpenes start evaporating off. So that's why you want to cure it and keep it in an airtight container to maintain them as much as possible, to cure it correctly.
Well, according to these scientists in this article, they say that you can take CBD and convert it to THC in a laboratory.
Oh, okay.
But with this new H2 CBD, you cannot. So I don't know. That's way over beyond my pay grade. But that's what it says in the article. So we'll keep an eye on it.
Or you could just grow some weed.
Yeah, there you go.
Or you could do like they're doing at Harvard and MIT. They're just going down to a local dispensary and buying some and doing their studies with it.
Right. Well, I think they're
studying geography, but
what the pharmaceutical companies would love to do is take the growers out of the equation.
Because I don't think that's going to happen because the demand for flour and concentrates.
Yes, but that's different. I'm talking about just the pharmaceutical companies, their business. They don't care about you buying a joint.
Well, they have to do it that way. I mean, because they have to have a consistent product, I think it'd be very difficult to grow a consistent product. as far as to teach. That's what I was on. That's what I've read.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it? Is as far as dosing is concerned,
because every plant's going to be a little different. So they needed consistent things, and that's how they're used to doing things. So,
well, those of you out there who are listening who are versed in this field, whether it's science or horticulture or growing, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think. Send us a comment.
More and more people are switching from flower to vape cartridges. They're actually predicting by 2022 that the vape cartridge sales will overcome flower sales in the United States. Now, one of the things is now what's happening is there's all these, they're calling them the new roaches, and they're the empty vape cartridges that you screw onto your battery. Now,
the dead soldiers.
Right, they're saying, well, why don't we recycle them? Now, no one has really come up with a plan to recycle these yet. And the problem is that, well, a few things. To really set up a plant to do it, you need specialized equipment, and you need a lot of these vape cartridges, and you can't collect them. And the reason you can't collect them is because most states have laws, because I guess they don't want people to reuse, cannabis products, what have you. But they make it illegal for the dispensaries to collect the used vape cartridges, or even, which I'm sure also applies to disposable vape pens. Because those are even more, because they have a battery in them. Because you don't want to throw a battery in a landfill. Right. That's not good, man. That's not good.
No, it is not.
So what do we do? I know personally, I've been saving them all. I mean, in like a little small box, you could save 1,000 of them. And I'm not going through that many right now. I just have like an empty, 1/8 airtight container that I'm keeping them in. Mm-hmm. But so what we need to do is we need to start lobbying the state governments to change that law so we can start recycling, or at least disposing and properly, and not throwing all these batteries into the landfills, because there's a lot of these disposable pens with batteries. So,
well, Andrew, I got a question for you. I did not know that it was illegal for dispensaries to collect.
Yeah, to collect the used ones. Yeah, they can't do that.
Why? What was the purpose of that?
Well, I think it's because they're afraid people are going to reuse them, or it wouldn't be unhealthy. I can understand for some medical purposes. Yeah, you don't want to. Bring in your old medical apparatuses and we'll reuse them.
Gotcha.
Especially something that you put in your mouth like that, I guess.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean. But there's glass in them, and there's aluminum, and the tips are plastic. So we don't want the plastics thrown in there. We don't want the batteries in the landfills. The glass and the although there's such a little bit of glass. But the metal in there, I'm sure, because that's where all the weight is, and they're and it's a solid little piece of metal. I'm sure they can reuse those somehow. If it's aluminum, you can use aluminum 100%. Aluminum's 100% recyclable. Right. Yeah, the point is here, it's just that the cannabis industry is a new industry, and they don't want these vape pen cartridges being the new Keurig cups, or water bottles that are floating around in the South Pacific, So So we need to address it. And now's an opportunity for this new industry to get it right from the beginning. So there's never going to be these things floating around and batteries. We got to keep these batteries out of the land. That's a big one.
Pardon the expression. Well, I think the key to recycling is the recycling process more cost effective than producing new? And I think about back in the day when you could collect a bunch of Coke bottles and turn them in for a deposit. You get a nickel each on them. And it was worth it to people to collect them and bring them back. Maybe something like that can work with the vape cartridges, provided there is some kind of cost-effective means to, some industry set up to separate them out, clean them, sanitize them, and repackage them for reuse. And that seems like it could be a profitable ancillary industry, provided, the laws allow for it. And it can be done in a cost-effective way.
Well, a lot of companies are starting to address this, and they're coming out with more environmentally friendly products. But there are a few things you can do. I think, for starters, you can buy vape pen cartridges that are refillable. So just get and refill them, use them more than once. And more of the vape pens now are coming out with ceramic heating elements, which would extend the lifeline so much longer, as opposed to the metal filaments.
Healthier, too.
And plus, they're saying they're breaking down and you're getting heavy metal in the vape. Yeah. So I know there's one company called Sangha Packaging, and they're making child-proof packaging for cannabis products out of hemp, biodegradable hemp.
There you go.
I mean, that's a big one.
Now, that's perfect to me. That's poetic justice to me.
Full circle.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's other companies. There's a dispensary in Colorado called L Eagle, L apostrophe Eagle, L Eagle. Anyway, well, they're like the first dispensary to get certified, get a first green certification for doing everything organically and using biodegradable packaging, et cetera. And they even grow all their own cannabis behind glass organically so that you can come in and see it and never leaves the property,
That's cool.
So like the ultimate farm to
like
table.
Like a brewery kind of.
Right.
And doesn't this seem like just a natural fit for the cannabis industry, for the people in the cannabis industry?
Definitely.
Yeah, so you're going to see more and more companies coming out with products for packaging. And also you're going to start seeing more companies are going to start coming up and saying, hey, we're environmentally friendly. Here's all of our packaging is either recycled or environmentally friendly, biodegradable. And I think there's going to be some people that will pay a premium for those products because because of Whole Foods. I mean, if Whole Foods can get people to come in and pay $20 for a peeled orange, then
no, for organic.
Well, I mean, there's
a market for it.
It's like Cody Sanchez said. She was referring to securities, but there is a process of premiumization taking place in the cannabis industry all across it, and people will pay more for this sort of for environmentally friendly things, for higher quality things. So I don't see that as impractical at all.
No.
Now here's a question: you mentioned that refillable vape cartridges, are those a thing now?
Yeah, they do have them.
And how do those work? Do you buy like bottles of oil with the?
It's like it's a syringe with the fluid in it. Now I saw it at a dispensary, but they had like strawberry and coconut flavored or whatever it was, which don't appeal to me, so I didn't try it. But I asked them if they had that, and I have seen YouTube videos that show you how to do it, make your own fluid with RSO oil. But I've heard mixed responses from that, and so
I tried it. It was hard. I couldn't get it to blend.
You got to get the right ingredients, the right type of glycerol, I believe. So we'll see. I think the cannabis industry is going to be being environmentally friendly is going to be a factor in this developing industry.
Between cannabis and environmentally conscious consumers, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people who are cannabis enthusiasts, tend to gravitate towards environmental issues.
For those of you who are Android users, a Google Play Store, which is where you tend to go to get most often, I would say, to get your apps, they have issued some new policy language. And this language is aimed at getting rid of apps like Weed Maps and Ease, which are apps that allow you to get online and order weed and have it delivered. Okay,
as well as other things.
Examples, among other things, yes. Yeah. But with the new policy, and then they did it very stealthily. They just kind of issued these new violations, as they put it. And here are a couple of them. Violations: allowing users to order marijuana through an in-app shopping cart feature. That's now a violation. Assisting users in arranging delivery or pickup of marijuana. That's considered a violation. Facilitating the sale of products containing THC. So Weed Maps and Ease are up in arms about this. They're still on Apple, no problem. So if you've got an iPhone, no problem. You can go get those apps. But those apps are apparently going to disappear very shortly from the Google Play Store. Now, we checked, and it was still there today, so this is brand new news. But Google did not name any companies or any specific apps. They merely issued these new violations. So it'll be interesting to see. In their defense, it's assumed that they're doing this because the Play Store is considered to be, quote, child-friendly, unquote. There's a lot of stuff on there, let's face it, a lot of apps for kids. So they're trying to get away from that. Now, Apple has Ease and Weed Maps in their App Store, but you got to be 17 or over to order it. But that's still not a legal age to buy weed. It's 21 in most states where it's legal. So anyway, I think it's interesting because, we've talked on here before about issues we've had with Facebook. We had a lot of trouble with our Facebook page, which is pretty popular. We have, thousands and thousands of followers. I mean, I think we're up to 10,000 followers or something. And, we couldn't get them to let us promote any kind of posts or a page or anything, right, guys? I mean,
well, it was difficult. We finally did.
I think they'd let us,
but it was a long road to hoe, and it wasn't easy, and it took a while.
And we consider ourselves, we're not we're not a website on Facebook that's showing pictures of big fat buds and awesome heavy metal. No, we're just an advocacy.
Well, we don't advocate drug use.
No,
we
not at all.
Advocate legal reform.
Exactly. So we'll keep our eyes on this, and we'll let you know if we hear any more. And I'm going to keep checking back every few days to see if those two very popular apps disappear from the Google Play Store.
This is a perfect example of how the cannabis industry is having a very difficult time marketing all these companies because radio and television aren't accepting you. There's a lot of opportunities that whether it be like on transit advertising where they're not getting any love, so
or freaking social media,
and social media is beating them up big time. So what do they do? What do you expect them to do? Right. I don't know. Do we need to start a new Facebook? Called like a cannabis Facebook?
If you're a dispensary, you open a new dispensary in the market, and let's just say here in DC, how do you advertise?
Well, the way you do it is emails, texts. What you can do, you can do like these flash texts. Like,
but that's hard to do.
Well, not necessarily.
If you're a new business, you don't have emails. Nobody's come in yet. How do you, I'm saying a brand new dispensary as an example. How do you market yourself?
Well, you start.
Well, there are ways to acquire email and text
because
lists.
Whenever the first time you go to the dispensary in Maryland, they have you fill out a form being a first-time patient. So I'm sure that's when they can get you there. And of course, go ahead, text me, because what they're texting you are
deals and stuff.
Deals and sales and events. Not stuff I want to know about.
Sure.
And emails but Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, it's very difficult. Yeah, it's tough.
Well, I believe that this is still a function of the federal prohibition.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just can't help but feel that once that is lifted, and
I think you're right.
The interstate commerce aspect of it is not requiring such a high level of CYA, those sort of barriers are going to start coming down. What do you think about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you can advertise Viagra and Budweiser,
right, or liquor. Shit,
exactly.
You didn't used to be able to. Now you see liquor ads all the time on TV.
This is where we need people involved and active and informed. There's nothing is going to change unless like-minded folks participate in the process, make your voices heard. And one great place to start is to visit VoteProPot.com.
Or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com, or call our message line at 240-257-2441, and that number's in our show description as well, and we'll put you on the show.
Yeah, and we really have to put an end to the stigma, the negative stigma of cannabis use. That's going to help the movement go a long way. And please like and follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J. I said, I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old Sensimilla